KOS is a free first-person shooter that runs on the Source engine. Now, there have been free games based off Counter-Strike in the past, but this game just takes it to a whole new level. This game actually rips off some maps from Counter-Strike, and they even try to hide it by changing the textures. Did they really think no one would notice? The gameplay here is kinda hard to explain. Think of it as a combination of Combat Arms and Crossfire. It's not as realistic as Crossfire, and it's not as unrealistic as Combat Arms. Now, this is kinda hard to explain, but I think this game would have been more fun if they just made it a bit more realistic or a bit more unrealistic. What I mean is that you don't get the fast-paced action from Combat Arms, and you also don't get the need to use strategy like in Crossfire. People mindlessly run around the map trying to kill each other with no strategy, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing on its own, but when it's combined with slow-paced gameplay, it just makes the game very shallow and boring. Now, if a game's gameplay gets boring, then you want more game modes to keep you interested. Well, KOS has very few game modes. Seriously, I have only seen people play Search and Destroy and Team Deathmatch. And I'm pretty sure you already know what these are. You seriously see them in almost every single free first-person shooter. Now, if this game had better gameplay, I wouldn't mind the lack of game modes, but since the gameplay is very shallow, the lack of game modes is a big problem. Just like in Combat Arms, you rent weapons here. But the renting system isn't as good as Combat Arms, because you lose money every time you quit a match. And I know other games do this, but in those games you usually get to keep your weapons permanently. The reason this is such a big deal in KOS is because most of the matches you will find have the timer set to 20 minutes or even half an hour. So you're obviously gonna get bored in that time, but you can't quit, because if you do, you'll lose money. So the best thing to do is enter a match, then minimize the game, then go play chess on the computer or something. Now the graphics. Don't get me wrong, the graphics are great for a free game, but for a game that runs on the Source engine, it doesn't look that good, since the textures and models aren't very detailed compared to Counter-Strike Source or Half-Life 2. Now the sound isn't that good. The gun sounds are just really high pitched and irritating. The voice acting is also really bad. It's still better than Rebecca Black's voice, but that's not saying much. The fact that I'm comparing the voice acting to Rebecca Black should give you an idea of how bad it really is. This game isn't that good, because there really isn't much to keep you interested, since the gameplay is very shallow and there are very few game modes. This game gets a 5 out of 10. I know this review was very short, but there really isn't much to say about this game.